Gluing boards together to form one large panel like this is one of those core skills that every woodworker needs to master. I'm going to give you 5 tips to help you with your panel glue-ups. Alright, tip number 1 is around stock preparation. You're going to want to invest the time up front to get your stock so that it is absolutely perfect. Flat faces parallel to one another, crisp jointed edges, perfectly square to the faces. If you skip that step, you're going to run into nothing but problems. You can't fix it with clamping pressure, sanding, or planing down the road. I've got a video on my channel called How to Prepare Perfect Stock. If you're not familiar with that sequence, go take a look at that. That'll set you up for success in your subsequent passes. So in this stock preparation phase, you're going to want to, after you think you're ready, lay them down on the table with your clamps, slide them together with just the absolute slightest bit of finger pressure, and make sure that those joints come together perfectly. You shouldn't be able to see any gaps. If you do see gaps, if it requires more than just a little hand pressure, or definitely if it requires clamping pressure, get back over to the joiner and make sure you fix those joints so that they come together perfectly. All right, tip number 2 is about laying out your boards. How do you choose the best layout? Optimize it for the best grain match. And so basically you're looking for the best appearance. How is this going to look the most like it is a single board, so you're not called, so your attention isn't called to the joint lines. So the way to do that is grain matching and color matching, and I'm going to just try these different orientations, flip them around. That's a big knot. I'm going to definitely not want that on the show face, so I know that it's going to be like that. I'm going to mark that just so I can keep track now when I glue it up, and make sure that I can get back to this orientation very quickly. Tip number 3 is about choosing the right stuff to help you glue up the panels. First, clamp selection. I've got out my 3 favorite or most commonly used clamps in my shop. A bar clamp, a pipe clamp where you use your own plumbing or gas pipe along with the clamping fixture that attaches onto it, and third, a parallel jaw clamp. So first of all, you need a lot of strength for gluing up panels, and that's going to rule out the bar clamp. Bar clamps have a lot of strength for certain applications, but not for edge joining. So we've got then our 2 main choices, pipe clamp and parallel jaw clamp. Those are both good candidates for this. My first pick is parallel jaw clamp. I'll use those in most cases unless I'm gluing up a lot of panels, and these are all in use, and I'll grab the pipe clamps. The reason for that is these have the ability to pull very, very straight. These are going to tend to bow a little bit and pop the panel up a little bit, so you're going to want to alternate bottom and top and bottom and top as you go across to offset the pull of the clamp or push of the clamp in the outward direction. So I'm going to demonstrate using these parallel jaw clamps. These are awesome. Next, your glue choice. Really any PVA woodworking glue will do. I've got 3 options out here. And then finally, the question around assembly accessories is, do you want to use biscuits for gluing up panels? And I don't use biscuits. The reason for that is they don't add strength to the glue up. These are an alignment aid. Personally, I feel like they cause more problems with alignment than they solve problems. I'm going to show you a technique to get perfect alignment, better than you will actually with biscuits, and you don't have the hassle of milling the slots and so forth. So, all right, tip 4 covers what to do during the actual glue-up process. So the first thing you're going to want to do is decide how many clamps you're going to need and where to put them. So first thing to do is visualize the clamps radiating off at a 45-degree angle in each direction. And then based on the width of your boards, that's going to determine how many panels you need to apply overlapping pressure. So where do the clamps go? So I've got my bevel gauge set at 45 degrees. I'm going to make sure that I'm radiating pressure out beyond the edge so that I have good closure at the ends of the panels. So I'm gonna give myself maybe an inch or so outside of that. And I'm gonna draw the line out at a 45-degree angle, then come back here from that same point. So this is gonna be a clamp position. And I'm gonna go 45 degrees out in the other direction, and then I'm gonna flip it over and I'm gonna overlap it again by at least an inch or so. Okay, here's another clamp position. I'm gonna go 45 degrees in the other direction, you get the idea. Okay, so, and then I'll overlap that by an inch or so. So that tells me I need 3 clamps and I can cover the entire panel with clamp pressure. I'm going to use 4 just for the heck of it. There's no penalty to use more, but you don't want to use less and leave gaps, because you'll see gaps then in your joints and your joints will stick out like a sore thumb. You want them to disappear. All right, now with the planks back in their orientation how I want them, I'm going to take 2 edges, flip them up. These happen to be at the same height so I can gang them together for a little bit of efficiency. And then I'm going to put glue just on these 2 edges. People often talk about whether you should put glue on both edges or just on one edge. And I normally put it on one edge. The only exception to that is when I'm gluing up very porous wood, like white oak as an example, or any kind of oak that has very large pores and can absorb a lot of the glue into those pores. Then a lot of times I'll go ahead and put glue on both surfaces. It doesn't really matter. If you get a little bit more squeeze out, I don't worry about that. It's a little bit messy, but it's easy to clean up, this type of glue. And glue is really cheap, so I'd rather have too much than too little. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, so that's an adequate coverage of glue. Take those, flip them back into position. Rub them together a little bit. And then I'm going to apply clamping pressure on one end of the panels. Not going gorilla tight here, just snugging them up until I see that squeeze out. And here's where my technique may differ a little bit from some others. So I'm going to go in and just check that right at the clamp. Check each of those joints, and if they are the slightest bit off, I'm going to force them flush. Remember, this clamp is not gorilla tight yet. One technique you can use as you're forcing those flush, if you need to, you pry down at this end of the panel, and you can see that gives me a really good lever to sneak that into position. So, and then after your 2-3 minutes or whatever, when that glue just starts to grab a little bit and it's going to be less likely to slide, then you can apply more clamping pressure. You don't want to do it too early, because if you do it too early, it'll put pressure on those boards, and that glue is a lubricant, and they're going to want to slide around path of least resistance. So, all right, tip 5 is how to clean up the panel. So the big debate is whether you should wipe off the glue while it's still wet, or let it get dry and then take it off with a scraper. The scraper technique works fine, but you have to do it at just the right time. If you do it too early, you're going to end up smearing a lot of glue. If you do it too late, and I've had this happen, I've had both of these things happen actually, you're going to end up with tear out, and it's going to tear out a lot of the grain along that joint. So I prefer, and I've never had a problem with the wipe off technique. So what I'm going to do is just get a clean rag and get it wet, and then squeeze out all the water possible, and I'm going to wipe it down. Go maybe a couple of feet worth of glue line, stop and clean the rag again. And then do the rest of the joints. All right, that's it. That's all there is to it. So wait an hour before you take it out of the clamps. I like to wait at least 2 hours before I run it in the planer because otherwise you'll get gummy glue sometimes on your planer knives and you don't want that. So with that, I appreciate you watching. I hope you subscribe, hit the bell, come back for more. I do a lot of woodworking, wood turning, and power tool related videos.